Hi everyone, welcome to the Lit Hangout. We're very excited for everyone to join us. Just to kind of give you a quick heads up of what the Lit Hangout is, this is our attempt to kind of open up our platform to a lot of different publishing professionals so that we can have a very interesting and fun chat with them, get to know the different aspects of publishing, kind of create a more educational session for people and kind of open up um, our platform so that people can ask questions and learn more about what it takes to publish a book, what goes into the entire process, and who are all these different people who are involved in the process. So, before, without further ado, I'm going to invite today's guest, who is Priyanka Kedia. So, let me quickly send her an invite. Hi, Priyanka.
Hi, Zalak. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Can you hear me? Good?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
you're very on.
great.
Okay,
Great.
great. So welcome to the Lit Hangout with Booknerds Author Agency. We're so excited to have you here. So let's begin. And just to kind of kick things off, why don't you give us kind of a background of what you do, and how did you get into publishing and becoming a literary agent?
So publishing was always a part of the plan, and I'd say I kind of fell off the wagon for a while because I was studying literature, and for a good 3 years of my life, I thought that, you know what, I want to go into academia. Uh, but I don't know what happened in my final semester. Just like I'm glad whatever happened because then I started thinking about publishing once again, and I actually got advice from somebody who works in publishing and is quite vocal on Instagram about all things publishing. She goes by the editor recommends. And she was, and she was recommending people that they should connect with publishers and editors directly at publishing houses because that's the best way to get into the industry because it's a very network based industry. So that's what I did. I spent hours and hours on LinkedIn. And I think like 15 days after I started sending out connection requests, I sent a message to an editor at Penguin. And I was just like, hi, I'm somebody who wants to work in the industry. It would be great to connect with you. And she replies back and she's like, hi, would you like to intern with us? So,
That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah, I love that too. So that's how I started, and then after that, I obviously joined Reading, which is where I am right now. So I joined as an intern first, and now I'm working with them full time. So that's how I ended up in publishing, and I've been here for like almost 2.5 years now. A little more than that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I know a lot of us follow Shreya, who is the editor recommends on
Yeah.
Instagram. She had like amazing advice always.
Yeah, she does. I mean, I ran into her at a cafe one day and I just like went to her and I was like, hi, I know you. I owe my job to you. And she's like, I'm sorry.
Awesome.
That was fun. Yeah.
So, this is what I envisioned for today's conversation to go about, just kind of a twofold, because we want to provide as much information to people out there as possible. Um, so I want to kind of know how you ended up becoming a literary agent specifically and what that entails if there are people who are looking to become agents. And the second part of the conversation, I want to focus on authors who are kind of trying to get in touch with agents and that kind of aspect. So let's begin with who actually is a literary agent? Kind of let's just talk about that. Who is a literary agent and what does it take for one to become?
Okay, I want to be really cliche and kind of say that a literary agent is like the biggest cheerleader for your manuscript or your book.
Yeah.
But no, you kind of want more than that. So they are your cheerleader, yes. So like a good literary agent is somebody who really believes in not just your book, but you as a person. So most literary agents, when they sign an author, they will sign an author and not a particular project. So they become the author's cheerleaders, and there's somebody who will get the best possible deals for the author. So, and these deals can be in publishing, they can be, a lot of literary agents actually work across various formats. So they will not just get a book deal for you, they may also try and get a film deal for you or an OTT deal for you. Or, I mean, if you look at the biggest success story, which is like J.K. Rowling, um, I'm sure that, somewhere down the line, her literary agent got her deals with these studios and things like that. I know she eventually parted with her agent. But an agent is somebody who has creativity, sensitivity, and a business sense, because they will make sure that your manuscript reaches the widest possible audience across formats.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting because I know a lot of people who even have like a little idea about what an agent does. They think of traditional publishing and books, maybe audiobooks or even max. But the fact that an agent can help you kind of snag a lot of different kinds of projects and expanding to different avenues is something I'm sure a lot of authors would be interested in. So, yeah.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because a literary agent is also somebody who, because they have the idea of the landscape, will try and separate contracts for you. So, for example, if they're doing a deal with, let's say, an indie press, which is a small press which don't have an audio division, then they'll try and make sure that the indie press only gets the print rights, and they'll try and snag an audio deal for you with an audio production house. So they'll do things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so that kind of sort of answers my next question is to why should an author have an agent? And why it's important for them to have an agent. So let me kind of add another layer to it. Is it absolutely necessary for an author to have an agent, or can they function without one? Can they get published and get in touch with publishing houses without an agent?
So an author can absolutely get in touch with the publishing house directly. That's not a problem at all. What happens is that, and this is obviously not true of everybody, but a lot of authors, especially first-time authors, they are not aware of how literary landscapes work. So an agent will be best placed to guide you through the process. So, for example, at Reading, what we do is, when we sign an author on, we first focus on getting a publishing deal for them for India. We also try and separate rights. So what we try and do is, we try and only sell the Indian subcontinent rights and then try and sell other rights separately. What that does for the author is it makes sure that they're getting visibility in other territories. They're getting marketing in other territories, they're getting promotions in other territories. And so, for example, I'm working with an author, she's Germany based, her book is set in Germany. So I'm trying to sell the rights for her book in India internationally, but I'm also trying to sell the rights for the German market separately. So an agent is the person who will have contacts in all of these territories. They would be working with co-agents, they would have contacts with publishers. So it will make your publishing journey smoother.
Yeah, that's because I'm sure it is a lot of, like, writing your book is a huge task in itself. And once you're done, to then kind of get into the entire process of getting it published, I'm sure you help someone who has like industry knowledge and who has all the contact, like great help.
A lot of authors don't have the time because, it's a harsh truth, but writing does not pay you a lot, right?
Yeah.
So most of the writers, writing is their hobby, or it's their side job, or it's something they do on the weekends or after coming back from home. So they don't have the time or the energy to actually go to every publisher's website, find out who the right editors are, send it to them. So, it's just like outsourcing here. Yeah.
And just to kind of quickly talk about, I know that there are places or publishing houses that do not pay for the solicited manuscripts. Is that true for even the big publishing houses in India, or is that still like a 50-50 or a 80-20 situation?
India, it's a 50-50 situation, but even big publishing houses are looking at manuscripts that reach them directly from authors. But if it's reaching via an agent, it's an additional layer of filter, right? Because they receive so many manuscripts all the time. If it's gone through an agent, they will know that there's at least one level of check which has happened at the for the manuscript, and it'll be of a certain quality. So they're likely to prioritize it. Internationally, a lot of publishers just don't look at manuscripts if you don't have an agent. In fact, and I really don't know how true this is because this is things I've picked up on Twitter. But a lot of authors will be approached by editors and then told that please get an agent and then approach us.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah. But that needs to be verified.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay.
Yeah.
Just speaking of an agent, then finding an author, or an author finding an agent to represent them, how does that process go about? Do the authors directly get in touch with agent? Is there like a submission process to an agency?
Mhm. So, it works differently for different people. In India, what's common is that every agent has their website and you'll have a submissions page or a contact form and you can write to them. And if they like your work, they'll approach you. A lot of international agents work slightly differently. They use something called a query manager, where they open for queries for a particular period of time. And it is within that time you're supposed to send them submissions. And if they like it, they will reach out to you. If not, they will not reach out to you, or they may say no, or things like that. So, depending on which agency you're approaching and which agent you're approaching, you'll have to do some research and figure out how the agent is functioning. But these are the two major ways. Agents also approach authors, and I think the recent biggest success that I've seen in this area is the murder books. So Katie Garber, who's the writer of the murder book, so he was just posting murder online, and it caught an agent's eye. The agent approached the person, and the agent was like, "Why don't you convert this into a book?" And now there is like 4 murders and now a murder junior. So that also happens, which is why I said that agents are somebody who have a business sense as well. So if they see that there's a topic or there's a person who should write a book, they will likely approach the person and be like, hey, here's an idea. Why don't we work on this together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, would you say, in your professional opinion, it is advisable for authors to be really active on social media?
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah. And I say unfortunately because I personally believe that social media following should not come in the way of a good story. But what we're lately observing is that it does. Like a lot of times when we send out submissions to editors, and this is not just in India, all across the world, one of the questions we get these days is the author's socials. So I'm not saying that if somebody writes a brilliant book and does not have a social media account, it will not get picked up. In fact, there are some studies which show that a lot of debut authors don't have a huge social media following, but yes, it helps.
Got it. We have a question.
Especially in fiction.
Sorry? Yeah. Especially in fiction.
Yeah, especially in fiction. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. We actually have a question in the comments that is very interesting. So what are some of the things to avoid when an author is pitching to an agent?
Okay, so I think a couple of things right off the top of my head is a lot of agents have specialities, right? So you have an agent who's very good with fantasy. And why they have a specialty is because a lot of our work depends on our relationships with editors and who we can reach out to, right? So if I'm somebody who is exclusively working with fantasy editors, then if I'm receiving a crime submission, I would not look at it because I know that I will just not be able to place it. So that's something. Another thing is sending out an unfinished or an unpolished manuscript, because everybody in publishing, right from agents to editors, we're so inundated in manuscripts all the time that if we have read something once and if it's not very good, then we're unlikely to come back to it again. Yes, every once in a while, I will be so sold on the idea that I'll be like, hey, this is not working for me right now, but if you can fix X, Y, Z, then I'll be happy to take a look at it again. But a lot of times, I just don't have the time to, and I'm sure other people feel the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Speaking of manuscripts, you as an agent, what are some of the things that you personally look for in a manuscript while connecting with an author or partnering with them?
So I will give you a slightly complicated answer because our judgment parameters change based on whether the manuscript is fiction or non-fiction. For non-fiction, it's pretty simple. We look at the proposal and if it makes sense structurally. If something like this or what we have in front of us has been done before, if yes, then is there a fresh perspective that the author is bringing to the table, or is there a level of authority that the author brings to the table which has not been explored before? Uh, Level of authority in itself becomes a huge thing for nonfiction manuscripts, because if somebody who is, let's say, an anthropologist is writing about clouds,
Yeah.
I would raise my eye, you know. That is definitely one of the things, and obviously the writing. I mean, I think writing is supreme both in fiction and nonfiction, because it has to be accessible, it has to be intelligent, and I think writing, and this is a personal opinion, people can disagree with me if they want, but I think writing styles also change every 5 to 10 years. The kind of romances that you see coming out now would not have been acceptable 10 years ago. So I do think that there's that as well. For fiction, definitely looking at plot characterization. I personally place characterization and writing above plot because plot problems can be solved. But a lot of times, if character motivations are not clear, if the writing is not good, then it becomes difficult to work with the author on it. I also really I like to talk to my authors before I sign them on. I always have one conversation with them before we sign them on, because a lot of times if I feel like I might not be able to work with the person, then I choose to not sign with them, because it's a long-term relationship. You will not just be working on one book, and you have to have that trust and the level of comfort with the other person to kind of, sign them on. Because I also think writing, editing, agenting, it's, yes, professional, but I also think it's very personal, because a lot of times when you're working with somebody on their writing, you really get a sense of who they are as a person. They get a sense of who you are as a person. So I think that's also very important for me.
Yes, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know there are few people watching us, so I would encourage if you guys have any questions for Priyanka, do drop them in the comments and we'll try to address them as we move forward. So then when you as an agent or an agent in general, they have so many scripts in front of them. I'm sure you receive like innumerable manuscripts every day. So what are some of the things that make you choose and one author over another? Apart from a good manuscript, what are some of the other things that you look for in an author that would make you choose that?
So I think author profile definitely. Because if somebody is a big name in their area, or just in general, like if today I received a celebrity book, I would obviously do it. So there's that. I also would pick up a book that's contemporary. So for example, I recently read a book. It's called The Husbands, and it's basically about this woman who's single, and she comes back from a party one night, and her attic starts producing husbands for her. So like every time a man goes up, another man comes down. And I remember reading the report the sale report for it, and it was pitched as a book that examines the contemporary dating scene, where you have so many options that you can just like swipe left, swipe right, and things like that. So something like that, or even like when it comes to nonfiction, I'd pick up something that's dealing with something that's already happening in the world. So, like, let's say if today I received a book on the US presidential elections, I would sign it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so current events are obviously a big
Yeah.
thing.
Current events, big names. So there's this word that I hear a lot and I use a lot. It's called high concept. So if that's something which is a high concept, then I will sign it as well. So, it's something that you can pitch in one line and people would be like, oh, I want to read that. So there's something like that I would do. And then obviously I have like my personal preferences and things that I have been actively looking for. So like I really want a heist book. If anybody listening to this is writing a heist book, please send it to me. I'm looking for good sci-fi. I am so obviously, and when it comes to personal preferences, I love a good fantasy. So
Awesome. Yeah, that's that's uh that's a good idea. That's a good pitch. So, guys, if anyone watching this has a book, you have a potential agent waiting for you.
yeah.
Awesome. We do have one more question that we probably it'd be nice to address is if possible, can you share any behind the scenes stories about how books get selected for submission by publishers? To publish.
So it's very similar to our agenting process, when we select books for submission. And obviously, whenever we select a book, we have a plan for it, right? So for example, it boils down to things that I look for in a manuscript, because it's very likely that editors who are working at publishing houses would also be looking at similar things, if not the same things. So if today going back to the US elections example, if today I had a book on the US elections, I would send it out to publishers as soon as possible. So, I'll prioritize it and send it out. I'll make sure that it's going out when it's still relevant, because it does not make sense to send it out a year from now when things have passed. So that's something that we consider. Obviously, we are in touch with editors throughout the year, and we kind of get feedback from them and we hear about what they're looking for. So, let's say we have a manuscript that's like 6 months old, has not been on submission, or maybe has been on submission, and a new editor comes along and says, hey, I've been looking for something in this genre, and you have that exactly. So you can send it out to them. So it's a lot of feedback taking, keeping your eyes open, and then, mixing and matching.
Awesome. So the other thing is like when authors are writing a book or working on a manuscript, what would you recommend? At what stage should they start querying with an agent? I see.
Okay, so again, it's different for fiction and nonfiction. For fiction, ideally, especially for debut authors, because a lot of authors who are not debut would have an agent already. So for debut authors, you should ideally start querying after you have finished your manuscript, have a polished first draft, second draft, even a third draft, because any agent will ask you for the full manuscript at some stage. So you don't want to be in a situation where you write to them and say, hey, I don't have the manuscript ready. Because as I said, agents are also working based on a feedback loop, because today an editor may be asking for a fantasy, and the agent may have asked for a fantasy based on that, but 1 year down the line, fantasy may be out of the market. So that's the ideal thing for fiction. So you really need to have a polished draft before you query an agent. For nonfiction, as long as you have a structured proposal and a writing sample, you can start querying, because a lot of nonfiction books are sold on the proposal. So a proposal basically entails a chapter breakdown. some writing samples, or maybe 2 to 3 chapters, and an author bio. So as long as you have that put in place, you can start querying. Yeah.
Okay. So a full bound manuscript for fiction and a proposal and for structure of what you want to write. Maybe a couple of chapters.
Yeah. I mean, a full manuscript does not hurt. But you can start querying earlier when it comes to nonfiction, because a lot of times, especially with nonfiction, there's a lot of research involved and things like that. So it takes a longer period of time to document everything and put it together.
And a lot of authors, like, when they are querying with an agent, and they probably have like multiple agents who are interested in their manuscript. In that situation, what are some of the top 3 things that an author should look for in an agent? Or maybe the top 3 questions that they should ask?
So, obviously, an author should look at the agency record and the agent's record, right? They need to know if an agency can actually provide them the support that they need. I think it's also very important to ask the agent if they will be providing editorial support to them, because a lot of agents will provide editorial support, and there are some agents who do agency only. So they will just take your manuscript and send it out for submission. It may work on your first book, but your second book may need an edit. So you need to be clear about whether your agent is providing editorial support or not. And I think one thing that's really, really important is just to ask them, what's your vision for my book? Because it's very important to have a shared vision. You don't have to start at the same place, but as long as you come to the same understanding, I think that's very important.
Yeah, as you mentioned before, like, it is a very personal relationship.
Yeah.
I know, like, a book for an author is very close to their heart. It's very important. Like, blood, sweat, and tears to write a book. So you want to work with someone who is going to appreciate and cherish it.
Yeah. I personally love authors who know what they want, because it makes things easier, because you're like, okay, you know what you want, and I can try and give you that. And I love working with ambitious authors, so that's great.
So always ask as many questions as you can. Shy away from that.
And agents are looking for good manuscripts. So if you have a good manuscript, they will want it.
Yes. Is there anything, if you can divulge that information, any interesting projects you're working on currently?
I am working on like a lot of exciting projects. I signed a fantasy earlier this year, and the author and I were working on edits for like 6 months. I mean, it wasn't a lot of editing, but it was just like happening. So I'm very excited for that. I think, and I mean, this may basically come and bite me back in the ass, but I think it could be a game changer in fantasy when it comes to like Indian fantasy. So there's that. I am also working on like some exciting nonfiction, a memoir that I'm very, very excited about. I signed a couple of graphic novels last year and this year. Yeah. So I love all my authors. And I mean, I'm sorry if I'm like not mentioning anybody, but I actually tell this to all my authors that, I work with you because I like you. So yeah. So, I mean, I am excited about a lot of projects that I'm working on. And like, so, whenever, and this is something my senior told me when I joined the agency, that when you receive a submission, the first question you should ask yourself is, does this book deserve to be out in the market? So any project I sign, I strongly believe that it should be published and it should be in the hands of the people. And I try and bring that energy to all the projects. So I think we have another question or something.
Well, we just got something which is a very interesting question, is that does Reading work with Disney publishers? And there might be a fantasy manuscript that might be coming your way.
Please send it to us. We do work with the imprint that Disney has. We also work with like Rick Riordan Presents and things like that. Uh, Always happy to look at retellings. Big fan. I remember reading Song of Achilles again, something very cliche, but it kind of just like kind of broke my brain in a good way. And then also reading a lot of retellings for my literature course, like because um, women's retellings are a huge thing, especially like for English literature students. So I love retellings. Yeah.
So the best way to get in touch with you would be email. That could be fine.
Yeah.
Reading.
Yeah. You can like, go to the Reading agency page. We have a submissions page. Anything you send on there will be sent to all the agents at the agency. Whosoever likes it will get back to you. You can also like message me personally on Instagram or message the agency page. Somebody will get back to you. But we do look at everything we receive. So
Awesome. And we try to leave all the handles and everything in the description, so you guys can get in touch with Priyanka to see. Awesome. No, this is so great. I will not let you go without my favorite question.
yeah,
What are you reading right now?
I think it's all of book like everybody who works in the book industry they love this question. I'm reading this very interesting book. It's titled You May Now Kill the Bride. Yeah, kind of gives away the plot a little, but I like it. It obviously starts with this group of women who go for a hen party right before a friend's marriage, and the bride chokes and dies.
Oh,
Like
wow.
she's drinking, I think I don't remember what she's drinking exactly, but she's drinking something and she chokes and she dies. So that's where I'm at actually. Let's see what happens next. Yeah.
It's exciting. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah. I don't think it's available as paperback in India yet. I'm reading a Kindle edition. So
What?
yeah. But yes, great book. Please check it out if you want to, if you like crime. But what are you reading right now?
I actually have the book next to me.
Okay.
It's called The Black Sheep by
Oh,
Harrison.
okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's about this girl who has escaped from, well, she's kind of estranged from a family who is very religious and conservative. But now she's gone back home for a cousin's wedding. But back home, she's found out some really dark secrets about herself and her family. And that kind of um, extrapolates and snowballs into bigger things. So,
Yeah. If you like that, you might
yeah.
if you like that, then you might also like this book called Bad Fruit. Also, we have got this like message that I'm reading right now. It says, "Do not pass before your wedding." That's the
Yes.
be careful while you're planning your bachelor's and yeah.
So you were talking about a book. Um,
No, I was just saying that you might enjoy Bad Fruit if you like that.
oh yeah, for sure.
That's the book. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Not Priyanka, this is
No,
great.
yeah, this one. Yes, same here.
Chance again to do this and answer.
Yes, and hopefully next time it will be in person. Fingers
Yes,
crossed.
sure.
Yeah,
We'd love to have an in-person conversation with you.
yeah.
And thanks everyone for joining today. It's been lovely. Do follow Priyanka. We'll leave all her handles in the description and get in touch with her if you want. And just follow Booknerds Author Agency. We try to do these sessions more, invite more publishing professionals to answer some of these questions and kind of demystify this whole process of publishing. So
Yeah, this was very good because I remember when I was starting out, I had no idea about the publishing industry. So conversations like this really help.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do too, because it's the same for me. I'm also pretty new to the publishing industry, so this is a great learning experience for me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Priyanka. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you everybody for joining. And thanks, Alak. This is lovely.
Yeah, same here. Bye.
Bye.